Welcome to Creating Connections Podcast, episode 169. I am Mitch Taylor.
And I'm Vicki Musney.
Is this it?
This is it.
Is this the end?
This is the end of this.
What does that mean? More after the break.
That was nice and easy.
What are you talking about? This also speaks to a much bigger issue.
Providing personal solutions through understanding people. This is the Creating Connections Podcast with Gitomer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor and Certified Personality Trainer Vicki Musney.
Welcome back to Creating Connections Podcast, episode 169. I am Mitch Taylor.
And I'm Vicki Musney.
And this is it. Kaput. Finito. Done. Alto.
The final episode
of Creating Connections Podcast. Now, we're not saying that we're done helping to educate. We're not saying we're done providing personal solutions through understanding people. But
we're probably not even done working together to creating some of those things.
in regards to the podcast, this is it. This is the last episode. So what we wanted to do is kind of share a little bit of the things we've learned over 169 episodes and what this has taught us, what this has brought us to, and just share a little insight into the history, if you will, of this podcast. So Vicki, you got some things you thought of already. Why don't you go ahead and...
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have learned from this, or one of the positives that has come out of the last 3.5 years of this project, is just facing my fears and working at things that make me uncomfortable. And I remember when you first asked me if I would do a podcast, I had a limited understanding of what a podcast was. And when I finally said, yes, I'm really ready to do this, and you're like, hey, let's go record that first episode. And I remember sitting down on the couch and you setting up your iPad across from us. And I'm like, wait, what's that for? You're like, well, it's to record the video for the podcast. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I've been tricked. I did not know that you wanted to do a video podcast. I don't like doing video. It makes me uncomfortable. And yet here I am, 169 videos later. Mm-hmm. And we've done a lot of other video projects since then.
Yes, we have.
Because of a result of the podcast. So learning to do a better job at webinars and even the things we've collaborated on for online trainings and things like that. A lot of that has come from just saying, this makes me uncomfortable, but I think that something good can come out of it. And there's something good about doing something that makes you uncomfortable. And I will probably never love making videos as much as you do, Mitch. I could never do the daily commitment that you have for most of your year and things like that. But overall, this has been a really positive thing for me. And that's one lesson that I'm particularly thankful for, is just trying to learn to embrace things that I'm not good at, like the video itself and spreadsheets. When we switched to the spreadsheet format, that was a real challenge for me.
Yeah, one thing I've learned myself is to ensure that the person you're working with has an underlying understanding of, Google. Now, I'm not just talking the search engine, because you do that very well. Research is something you're very formidable at, but spreadsheets and Google Drive and all that.
I'm
learning, which is great. And
I haven't cried over that spreadsheet in quite a few months.
No, you haven't.
So again, I'm trying and I'm learning, but no, I'll probably never love spreadsheets.
No, exactly. One thing I've learned, I think, is that say yes when an opportunity strikes, say yes. This podcast has allowed me to interview some heavy hitters, from Jeffrey Gitomer and Doug Sandler to Jennifer Darling to
Mike
other
McCallowitz.
Mike McCallowitz, other industry icons we've had on the show. Has been great to have that kind of reach, to be able to pick the brain of those people and give that information to you, I think is a great resource. And I'm proud that we actually put something out there that has helped people. You know, from David Hoyt having breakfast in the morning with us and seeing his posts on Facebook about that, and others. I think it's been good to be able to impact lives in a positive way. And this is just one of those ways we did that over the last 3.5 years.
That's a good one. Say yes. I like that. Another one for me, I think, is kind of a relearning of a lesson that I've been learning for the last 22 years. My husband and I, most of you know, work together and have had a business together that started at our own wedding. And I think forming a professional and business partnership with someone that is a completely different personality has reinforced some of those lessons in kind of a different way. Because obviously, Mitch, you and Craig are very different people.
Yes.
And our relationship, of course, is very different. But the lesson of knowing what needs to be done and figuring out who needs to accomplish what, I think has just been reinforced, that having that plan and knowing what tasks need to be accomplished and looking at that, okay, these are the things that I'm good at, these are the things that he's good at, these are the things that either one of us could do. And how are we going to delegate those, separate them out, and figure out who is going to do what? And then just knowing that, okay, I don't love the spreadsheet part, but part of my role in this the last several years has been planning the content and scheduling out the interviews. And for me to be able to do that effectively, I've had to rely on, Mitch's strengths of helping me set up the initial spreadsheet. And then I could figure out how to fill it in. And maybe, I couldn't always adjust the columns just exactly how I wanted them, but I needed to, have the tools to do my job. And then there were other pieces of it that I knew, okay, this is definitely Mitch's territory. Please don't make me have anything to do with the back end behind the scenes of the scheduling and the uploading and how one program speaks to another and the editing part. I hate that. And so just finding out, okay, what do I do well? I'm fine with scheduling the interviews, coming up with the topics and that type of thing. What does he do well? And then of the other stuff, let's just figure it out. Either one of us could do certain things, and then sticking with that. So I think that's just good in any partnership, whether like in my case, in my home, in my first business with my husband, whether it's us working together, whether it's people that I'm in other professional associations with, just having that mindset of, clear division of labor, clear assignments. And this is important to me. This is my job. And when I've committed to doing this piece, even the parts of it I don't like, that doesn't make it not my job. Once I've said, okay, I'll do this, I have to figure out how to do it. And yes, I can ask for help if I need to, but it's still on me, and I need to own that. And that's been a good reminder and a good ongoing lesson for me the last few years.
This helped lead me to live at 7:55. The Creating Connections podcast did. And I know obviously you're not up that super early in the morning like I am, because of time zones and such.
Up at 7:55, just Pacific.
So that's why we could never do that episode together. It'd have to be like live at 3 p.m. or something to do that together. But the reality is that this helped lead me to that, which I'm still grateful for. I know another thing, Vicki, that I don't know if this is on your list or not, but the other big thing I know it's helped you tremendously is when we went to the Podcast Movement Conference in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
and we got to meet John Lee Dumas
Yep.
of Entrepreneur on Fire and the Freedom Journal. I know you said you used that to help write your latest book,
I can't
correct?
reach it. I can see it from where I am, but I can't
Yeah.
reach it from where I am. Yes.
So share with us how that helped you.
That was cool. I mean, that whole event was really fun and exciting and super educational to meet other podcasters and people that had a lot of different experiences and bringing them together. And John Lee Dumas, I had heard before when we first started talking about podcasts. I had listened to one of his online resources that he had available. So I knew who he was. But when you went to his seminar and bought that Freedom Journal for me, it became this book that I thought, oh, it was beautiful. I mean, it's this black journal. It's embossed gold edges on the pages. And it's absolutely beautiful. These like built-in bookmarks and super fancy. And I set it on the shelf right here to my left next to my desk. And I just felt like, oh, I don't have it's all about, completing a goal in 100 days. And I didn't feel like I had a goal that was like worthy of a journal that pretty for a really long time. And then in the fall, when my husband started saying like, hey, when are you going to write your next book? And I said, oh, I've got this idea that's been mulling around in my head for a couple of years. And all of a sudden I was like, that's what I'm going to use that journal for. And I've never seen myself be that productive is when I was in the routine of every morning, opening that journal, starting out what my plan for the day was. At the end of the day, what was I thankful for that happened that day? And then in the middle, my to-do list and my accomplishments. And yes, that is that tool that was indirectly part of the podcast was how Color Me Smart came to be. I wrote that in less than 3 weeks, and then the rest of it was the production side, the editing and the creating of all the design and everything. That's what took the rest of the 100 days, and the copyright issues and trademarking that I did for that title. So yeah, but that all can trace back to the podcast conference.
The other thing I think I'm grateful for is the relationships that have come out of it. Maria Mattarelli obviously was another one that came out of it. But also sometimes it's the things we don't take on. And maybe you look back and we're like, maybe I should have done that. The podcast network we almost decided to join, but didn't. That's a risk that we didn't take. But it's one of those things that you just never know. But I was still glad to be open to the opportunity and still glad to meet the people we did out of that experience. Yeah. So I think those are things that you look back on, you're like, man, should I have done that? Should I have not? And those are calls we made jointly together as the partnership of creating connections. But it's one of those things that you're just like, that was a decision we made together to decide yay or nay. Yeah. And those are things you look back on to say, that was a good decision. And we move forward from it. So think about those kind of things, in regards to the podcast, and giving you kind of a behind the scenes look here, if you will, over the last 3.5 years of podcasting for Creating Connections. We are going on hiatus. Is there anything else you want to add, Vicki? I should say to the end. Sorry.
I think, my final thought, and it definitely relates to this, is this has been a wonderful season, but I'm okay with it being a season. I think there was a part of me that just kind of has known for a little while that this season needs to come to an end. And I don't know what might happen next or what we might decide to create both separately and or together in terms of training. And I feel like we've done a really good job of putting out a lot of great content, useful content, free content for a long time. And I am proud of that. But I don't want this to feel like, well, we failed or now we're done,
No, this is just a chapter.
And it was a great season, but I have learned that I don't have to feel guilty. When we said, yes, we would do this, we weren't committing to doing it every single week for the rest of our lives. And now it's okay for us to say, that's been a great season. I don't know what's going to happen next. We're going to take a few months and figure that out. And we both have a lot of trips and projects and events and things that are happening separately. And then who knows what'll happen after this, but I don't know what the next season will be. But I'm really thankful for this one.
This is the closing of a chapter for Creating Connections, and who knows what will happen up next. I'm sure we'll stay in touch with our individual channels, Mitch Taylor, Tailored Sales, or VickyMusney.com. You can find out more information about any of us. Happy to help you however we can, either together or separately. And you never know what's going to be the next chapter.
We have one more, Mitch, that we didn't even mention, which is kind of the obvious one.
Yes.
This book.
The book
Came out of the podcast.
Yeah.
We started the podcast and about 6 months in got the idea for writing the book. And we learned so much from that too, which was a spin-off project of the podcast. But if we hadn't committed to creating some content together on a regular basis, that book wouldn't have happened.
That's absolutely right.
And hopefully that'll be part of the legacy, not just that the videos will remain forever, on YouTube, but that there is a other tangible resource if people want to learn some of the lessons along with us that we learned in the process. So I just had to mention that one too. Okay.
Cool. So thanks for watching Creating Connections podcast, episode 169. I'm Mitch Taylor.
And I'm Vicky Musney.
We have provided you with personalized solutions through understanding people. We hope to do it again in another chapter of something else down the road. Thanks for watching.
Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Creating Connections podcast with Gittimer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor and Certified Personality Trainer Vicky Musney. For more information on providing personal solutions through understanding people better, visit creatingconnections.biz.